Hi folks, welcome to Cortisco's Chess Center. Please like, share, and subscribe as we share our love for the greatest game in the world, chess. Hi folks, welcome back. This is from the America Cup Champions 2022 being played in St. Louis against American Ray Robson as white, 26-76, and Levin Aronian, formerly playing for Armenia, now playing for the U.S., one of the top players in the world. I believe he's still in the top 5 at rated 27-72. So these guys are world-class players. This is the craziest back crap game I've ever seen. Absolutely. It's a little bit long, so I'll try to go through it as quick as I can. This is nuts. Let's get into it. Ray is white and Levin is black. And it's really something, I'll tell you. I'll go through the opening here. It's going to be in English, 4 nights. Pretty much standard stuff. Like I said, I won't go in the opening too much. That's not what really the interesting part of this game is. A5. Now, here's where it really starts getting weird. The beginning of the weirdness, I should say. It's amazing to me. The position is about equal according to the computer. I think 99% of people would probably just play D4. But the computer likes just a little bit better, and that's what Ray did. He went rook takes C6. Sacrifice exchange. Ray's not afraid of 11 for some reason, because that's a big deal. Pawn takes. Knight takes. What do you do here? Bishop takes. Interesting. Pawn up. F6 to chase the knight. Now comes the move that I wouldn't have saw in a million years. Maybe not a million years, but it's something it's pretty much rolling the dice here, and that's knight takes the pawn. Now, what would happen if knight takes the pawn? So, would you play bishop takes knight? Well, let's see what happens. Check. Uh-oh. What do you do now? You have to take. And now what do? You check first. Bishop to G7. Bishop takes, hitting both rooks. It starts getting ugly real quick. Where do you go, maybe? Queen to D6 here? Maybe. You take the rook. Rook takes. There's 3 pawns for a piece. It's still about even. Well, that's a crap load of pawns. And 5 are connected. I mean, out of the, she's got 7 out of 8. And 2 are connecting the other 5. This is going to be a tough road. But didn't go that way. Levin decided to go queen to D7. Very interesting. Queen to C2. You're going to see this ending is absolutely unbelievable. Knight D5. Rook C1. A4 by Levin. Disrupt that. And it looks like that white's in trouble. But not really, according to the computer. It's a small advantage for white currently. He has a knight and 2 pawns for a rook, which is more than enough compensation. If you don't take, you're in a lot of trouble. That rook gets in. So, Ray took. Decided to go rook to E6. And I think everybody and anybody would play bishop to H3. Queen takes. What do you do now? If bishop takes, queen takes, and this pawn is guarded. All for naught. So it's still 3 pawns for a bishop instead of a knight. Not much of an advantage. So after rook E6, Ray decided to go queen to B3, hitting the undefended bishop. Rook takes. Knight takes f6 check. And as you can see, the knight cannot move because it's pinned against the king. Rook takes, queen takes b7. Simultaneously with 2 hits on the queen, or 2 hits on the knight on d5, only guarded by the queen. Rook to a5. Bishop takes. Knight takes. Queen to b3 check. And now we have 4 pawns for a knight. Remember, it's 4 pawns. It gets crazier. King to h8 just to get, because he has to get out of the check. He could have traded queens, but if that would have happened, let's go back. Say queen went here. What are you going to do? Rook takes c7. That would be even worse. So 11 goes to h8 with the king. Brings the queen right down. Rook goes to queen goes to d6. Rook c6. Now, as we can see, what are you going to do? Can you take that rook? You can't because it's guarded by the bishop. This bishop is beautiful. So he has to move the queen. He goes to b4. Offering a trade. Ray trades. Rook takes c7. Now there's 5 pawns for the knight. You're going to see it gets even worse. h5. Here comes the pawns. h4. Wanting to disrupt their pawns. Wanting to break them up a little bit. I wouldn't have taken. The computer likes rook to c4 the best. And I kind of like that myself, hitting the bishop. And then you can move the pawn to d5 to go after the other pawn. But Ray decides to take. So now that's 6 pawns for the knight. I've never seen this ever in the thousands of tournament games that I've watched and the hundreds of tournament games I've played in. I've never seen 6 pawns for a piece that wasn't overwhelming. Believe it or not, it's less than 2-point advantage for white on the computer. And they just start maneuvering around. It gets complicated. Now remember, the time is running low for these guys. Here come the pawns. Knight. h5. Just keep that pawn on g7 stuck there. Knight travels around trying to harass. Bishop guards. Now he's guarding his a-pawn with his bishop. Rook to c7. Rook takes, bishop takes. Now we have 7 pawns and a bishop against a bishop, knight, and a pawn. I've never seen this craziness before, ever. So he's bringing his king up. Your king's an important piece in an endgame. He's very powerful. King h6. e5. You can't take either pawn because they're both guarded by the bishop. This is crazy. Knight d5 starts maneuvering the knight around. King f3. Get that king up there. Help escort those pawns down the board. Knight c3. He just goes bishop to b3, protecting everything. King takes. e6. Here come the pawns. Bishop d6. He decides to bring the king in over to e3. Chase the knight off. Now he wants to run with this pawn here. He wants these pawns to run with the help of this bishop and the king. We'll see how it works out. King g6. King d3. Hitting the knight. The knight has to go back to b1. Now he doesn't have an escape square in a3 if he has to get out. But it's still a crappy spot for that. a5. Here comes the pawn. Knight a3. And this is where I think Ray, as white, made an error. And I can see because this is incredibly complicated. King to e4 is a decisive move. And that's what I would have played, actually. Even I would have saw that myself. Because after king here, you're looking at bringing the pawn up, maybe even pushing him again, maybe cause the passer. That would have been a lot better. Maybe black would have went knight, king to d5, and the game would have been overwhelming. Instead, Ray miscalculated when bishop a4. Now the king comes over, a6. The king can't take this pawn. If he does, a7, and this bishop can't stop him. So he can't take it. So he goes bishop b8 to stop the advance of the pawn, and then d5. Now that pawn can't be taken by the king. g5, h3. This is unbelievable endgame. Bishop a7, f3, king e7. Now, which way do you think the white king should go? To the queen side or the king side? Bishop c6, bishop d7. And what they're trying to do is get 30-second increments on their clock because they're running out of time. So they do a couple of repeats. King c3, here comes the king. That knight's in a bad spot. He's only got one square to go to, and that's knight b1. King c2, knight checks. And this is, I think Ray makes another mistake, even though I don't think it's fatal, because right now, even though it's 5 pawns for a knight, the computer only shows a 1 1/4 pawn advantage for white. Can black hold this? Can he really? King to b3, I think, was a proper move. And these things are so difficult. Ray decided to go to c3 instead. And that's what he did. That goes back to b1, king to b4, king to d6. And this is an amazing move here. Absolutely amazing. The king is trying to get in, but he can't. So what he does is he gives up a pawn. And Ray has to take it because the next move is the queen. He has to take it because he's going to queen next move. And the bishop's guarding the queening square. And then the king comes up to b5, hitting the bishop. And he's going to maneuver his way in. Let's see how that works out for him. Bishop e3, king c6, stopping the black king from coming here or here. Knight c3, bishop b3, king d8. Here he comes. a4, king c8. It's almost like in a weird zugzwang position, but with a bishop, you could probably get away with it as black. And this is the move that really clinches it, I think. I think all of us would have played it. It's a natural move. And that is d6. Now, what is black going to do? What is black going to do? There's nothing he really can do. Bishop g1, maybe. He goes to f2. Bishop e3. And I think Ray missteps again. I think the best move is d7 check, which would force black to go king d8. But he doesn't. He goes back to b3. I think he's trying to put some time on his clock. So black just goes back. Now he goes a5. Now the king goes to d8. Bishop c4. But Levin's not giving up. As you can see, this bishop is holding this pawn at bay. As soon as the king moves, the knight starts to harass the king. And it's a move that the computer doesn't even have. And I thought it was a good move. The computer likes bishop d3. He goes f4. And all of a sudden now, it's almost a 9-point advantage for white. And the computer didn't see it because sometimes computers, this is a Fritz 17, does not understand endgames like people do. Now, Ray has to take that. Or there's another pass pawn coming down the board. Levin has to take it. And now you got another passer going h4. Now, if he plays bishop takes, this pawn's going to queen. There's nothing black can do to stop it because he can't get the bishop back here in time. So he can't take it. h5. Now the pawn is running. Knight to e4. This knight's going to try to put him off. h6. Knight f6 to guard the square here. So the knight's holding that pawn and the bishop's holding the other. But he can't last forever. Bishop d3, king to c8, h7. Knight has to take. And Ray decides to check first. d7 check. Unbelievable. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. It's just amazing. We'll go through a little bit of this. King to d8. Then he loses the knight. I mean, what is he going to do? He's helpless here. Absolutely helpless. Guard his pawn. The king just comes in. We'll say he even takes. Pawn. Bishop has to take. King takes. And we'll say now he's going to run his. Or we'll say he even goes here. What are you going to do? He has to push the pawn. What's he going to do? Can't move the king, or this white king will have a space for the... We'll say he's got to push the pawn again. He just goes here. And there's going to be Zunzweig soon. So we'll say he queens. Bishop takes. And it's the right color bishop. Plus the king is there anyway. So we'll say he goes here. He'll just go to b6. Say he goes here. King checks. And if he goes here, it's mate. So he can't do that. So he has to go back. And then he queens. And the game is over. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely incredible. What a great game by Ray. I had to go a little fast because the game is so long. I didn't want this video to go really long, but 6 pawns for a piece. I've never seen anything like it. As you can see at the end, white only had 2 pawns for the piece. But by then, his pawns were all the way down the board, and his king was there to help escort them. Kings are so important in the endgame. For those of you who don't play chess, a pawn is worth himself 1. A bishop and a knight are roughly worth the same, 3 pawns. A rook is worth 5 pawns. And a queen is worth 8 to 9 pawns. But the king, from people that use computers that develop the game, the king is worth 4 pawns. More than a bishop or a knight and just below a rook. That's how important kings are. Especially in the end games when the queens are off the board and the major pieces are off and the danger to the king is minimal. He now becomes a fighter rather than a hider. What an amazing, amazing game. Unbelievable. It's and they were out of time at the end. It was basically blitz at the end. What a great accomplishment for Ray. He made a few blunders along the way, but these kind of end games are so incredibly complicated, even computers can't figure them out. There it is. Look for more games coming from this tournament. Those of you that want to see any of the other games, there's a ladies section with some great games in it. And then the open section. Go to the St. Louis Chess Club and Scholastic Center YouTube channel, and they have all the games. They have commentary. It's really great. They cover all the games at once with 3 commentators and a computer board, and it's like a sporting event. They do a proper job. Until next time, folks, goodbye and good luck.